You know, why is it just all of a sudden, boom, my character's evil, consumed by the dark side? I didn't like that. So what I've come up with is the corruption rules. And like I said before, they replace the dark side points. Now, how this operates is that a character, whenever they, through an action or inaction, commit an evil act or allow an evil act, will receive a point of corruption. Now, what happens is that for every point of corruption that a character has, that is translated into 1D. And what happens is that whenever they receive receive a point of corruption, or at the beginning of the adventure, the Game Master rolls the total number of dice that are in the corruption pool, all right, 1D per point of corruption, and this is an opposed check or skill check versus either willpower or that defaults back to knowledge. And what happens is the difference that it's failed by tells you what happens to the character. For example, a 0 through 3, nothing really happens. I mean, the character would probably have some feelings of guilt or remorse, or maybe even bad nightmares for having done something that one would consider corruptible. On a 4 through 8, the person feels a sense of euphoria, delusions of grandeur, numbed to the consequences of his actions. So he's getting a little more darker, he's getting a little more corrupt. On a 9 through 12, what happens is they get to roll on that personality quirk table that came from Tales of the Jedi. And there's a random table in here, and basically they just roll against it. Now, this is called a minor personality quirk, and what it is of those quirks that they take from that table, they can make to temporarily overcome that. For example, if they are depressed or paranoid or impatient, and they find themselves in a situation where this would rear its head. If the character didn't want to role play that, what he could do is he could make a moderate perception check to overcome that. So he wouldn't have to do it, but it would still be part of his character. Now, 13 through 15, they get what's called a major personality trait. And unlike the, it's pretty much the same as a minor, except it's difficult as opposed to moderate. Now, if you fail your corruption roll by 16 or more points, the character is consumed by the dark side. They also get 1 minor and 1 major personality quirk on top of it. So, I thought that was kind of interesting. It kind of allowed for a more progressive, gradual, cancerous consuming of the dark side. Now, the rules are pretty much the same for Atonement. I made it so that a person, if they were sober in thought and were really trying to do good things or trying to stop others from doing evil and so on and so forth, the Game Master can remove anywhere from 1 or 2 points of corruption as opposed to 1 over the period of 2 ventures or whatever it might have been. I also put in some rules there for temptation, which basically just made it so that the Game Master could be more insidious in the way that he tempts the character. I did go ahead and add in some additional rules for calling upon the dark side. All the original rules are the same, but there's also something that I added in there because there is a rule mechanic that says if you call upon the dark side and you fail, let's see, a character who successfully calls upon the dark side receives a dark point. No, that's not what it was. Let me see here. It's even if you fail to do it, the dark side can ask you to make sort of a payment. And what it is you roll a 1 dice 6, and that's the number of character points they have to sacrifice. If they don't have that number of character points in their character pool, then what happens is that they lose 1d from either an attribute or a force skill, and they get to choose which Band-Aid they want to pull off. Now, I suggested that in addition to those, as opposed to losing an attribute or something like that there would be an additional cost for calling on the dark side. For example, premature aging, a crippling illness, memory loss, a physical disability like blindness or loss of mobility, mute, And just some things along those lines, things that people could role play without actually handicapping their character a great deal. Now, there's one more thing that I really was happy about that we came up with, was something called favors. Did you get a chance to read about that, Daniel?
I did not, actually. I need to catch up on that part.
That's not a problem. It's just like a 2-sentence blurb. And I think that it offers up a lot of mechanics and some cool stuff that goes on. Basically what happens is the dark side of the Force, when it's trying to woo a good person to become bad, all right, they will throw things out there to tempt them. Now, the one thing I did was the dark side can also tempt by offering a force point, which can only be spent for a particular purpose, usually an evil act. Now, this force point is available until the character utterly rejects a temptation. Otherwise, it just kind of like sits out there and goes, you can use me wherever you want. All you got to do is say so. It's there. Now, the character only receives a point of corruption if he succumbs to the temptation and uses the force point. Otherwise, it just hangs out. I
do, too. It offers the players an alternative than it allows for more interaction.
Exactly, and that was the whole idea behind the mechanic for this rule, was that people can, first of all, the fall to the dark side is much slower. It's much more progressive. There's lots of role-playing opportunities in there for them to drop hints through personality quirks and other things. I also wanted to make the dark side temptation more, kind of dirty and mischievous and just kind of like, just more dramatic. And that's what I was trying to add to the game. I don't know. I think it's really good. And as for the guys that are out there that are listening to podcasts, we'll go ahead and have a link for it. Take a look at it. Blast it out of the water. Give me all your thoughts on it. If you think it is utter crap, you let us know it's utter crap, but tell us why you think it's utter crap. Okay? If you think it's great, tell us what you thought was really good about it and what you think you can use about it. That's about it. That's all I got to say about that one. What else we got on the script, Daniel?
Ty Kane continues to work on the Star Wars Optional Rules resource. You're working with him on that one, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I haven't turned anything in since before Thanksgiving. I haven't rebooted my computer, so it's running a little slow. As I understand it, Ty is up to 133 pages, and I do believe there's only 16 articles left, so that is really good. I'm excited about it. Tell you what, guys, I know it sounds like I'm tooting my horn a lot today, but I think the last big post that I had this last week was the new random mission generator version 1.2. And this is the current version, but as I said earlier in the podcast, we are always looking for additional suggestions for this chart. And basically what it is, it's based off from the random mission generator from Rules of Engagement. Optional rule in the back of the book. I don't remember the page. I think it's like 98 or something. But anyway, we, through the community, people have posted some suggestions and ideas, and all we have done is compiled that, put it on a rollable table. It's on the D6 percentile, which means you roll 2 6-sided dice. One's a 10 and one's a 1. So you've got like 11 through 16, 21 through 26, so on and so forth. And what that has done is that has removed the original idea of using a dice pool, which had a big bell curve in the middle, which gave you some really skewed results. So we've gone with this. So again, if somebody comes up with a different dice mechanic that we can use for this, by all means, let us know.
Doug Red 4 on the Ranker Pit forums asks, in reference to force points, do you find yourself handing these out fairly regularly, or are they more rare in your game? To me, yes. The force points are actually rather rare. Because, to me, a player has to do something worthy of earning one. Jumping out and taking a bullet, or a blaster bolt, for somebody else. There's one. Just those big acts. For example, take a player swinging across a chasm in the Death Star. Hint, hint. That would have awarded somebody a force point, especially if they're carrying someone else.
Yep. I am of the opinion that force points are very rare as well. The reason for it in my games is, number one, the criteria for awarding a force point is pretty heavy. But also on top of it, keep in mind that characters can spend character points. As long as they've got character points, they can add those to their rolls. And that happens to be a exploding die with no detriment to it, which means if you roll a 1 on it, nothing bad happens. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, depending upon the number of character points your characters are running around and how much you award them, how much they bank them, it kind of makes it so that a force point doesn't need to be used nearly as much. And that's what I would encourage people. Now, until you get this idea across to your characters, I do believe that it's probably a good idea to, when they use a force point, explain to them, look, this is the criteria for using a force point and then getting it back. You sure you still want to do it? I would, at the beginning of your gaming sessions, I would be quite a bit more lax about when they can use a force point and if they get it back, until such time as everybody kind of gets on the same page. And then as the game progresses, then you start pulling the criteria down a little bit more. By that time, they've gotten used to using character points and stuff of that nature. Usually they've got a fairly good bank of 10 to 15 character points sitting back. That's how I look at it. Yeah, they're rare. They're like hen's teeth.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Matthew Bonzagni from Facebook asks, I am making up the Gand for my game. I keep reading about these omens and rituals that Findsman use to hunt down prey, but I can't find any rules as far as how the mechanics works. Anyone have any cool ideas for that? The Gand and their ritual can be found in Alien Encounters, page 56. And by the way, Matthew, I really like Gands. I am curious, though, are you running a game or just collating information? And if you are running a game, are you running a virtual game or are you running a face-to-face? Inquiring minds want to know. So, let us know.
Kai Rule posted an interesting character in short bio about an ARC trooper that he used to play named BU-77. Now, if you translate the 7s to T's as in Leet language, he would be ARC Trooper Butt.
With knowing Hisham pretty well, I mean, I don't know him real well, but I mean, I've read enough of his stuff. I think he did that on purpose. He's a funny guy.
The introduction sounds so much fun. 15 years after the Clone Wars, what would a genetically flawed Jango Fett clone, who has never shown his true face or unmodulated voice to anyone, not even his fellow clones, or even his teammates of Team Saber Dart, be up to in the Outer Rim territories? Anyone else has characters, great job, by the way, Cairo. Please post them in a brief introduction. Brett, is it Brett?
Yeah, it was Brett Pazinski.
Yeah, he's been doing a good job with that lately.
Yep, he posted one earlier in the week. I do believe it was an Ithorian bounty hunter. Yeah, the Star Wars galactic hippie beatniks. Turned bounty hunter. So let's see, Josh Mannon. He was a madman last week. Continues to post this week. He posted an optional ladder task difficulty resolution system. Yeah, say that 5 times real fast. Basically, what it does is he breaks the difficulty into 9 categories instead of the 6. And what he does is he adds legendary, epic, and mythic. And I will also note that at this time, DC Adventure uses 10. Now, per usual, there is a dice range for these difficulties. The unique aspect is that he has created a difficulty ladder with 4 different modes of play. There's a very easy, normal, and hard. Now, to get the players more involved, he introduces a mechanic that they can declare an advantage if they roll well enough. Now, I'm kind of unsure of the examples that he gives. My basic gut feeling when I see this mechanic is that it's interesting, but it seems to be more of a mishmash of mechanics taken from DC Adventures and Dungeon World. Now, does it really work? I don't know. Jury's still out. I mean, we need to see some playtest on this.
Exactly. Josh has a ton of great ideas, but the biggest thing is the proof's naturally in the pudding. Has anybody tested this? Will anybody test this?
Well, see, the other thing is, I'm a big person on not reinventing the wheel, and I don't think Josh is going to be offended by what I have to say here. The task or the difficulty numbers are already sliding. So they already allow the game master to kind of pick